this is Andrea with CAN TV, and today we're going to talk about the CG, or the character generator. So the CG and the CG operator, they're in charge of making the graphics, any text, any visual elements that have information. So that means something like lower thirds, titles, credit roll. Those are all things we're going to talk about today. And we're going to use this machine, the CG, to help us do that. Keep in mind that you can make your graphics here in the studio when you come in for your session. But you can also, and we recommend it, that you actually make your graphics ahead of time. And you can do that either on this program here, or you can do that on any other program, just making sure that you make it in a format that it can actually get loaded onto the screen. So with that in mind, let's get started. So here we are at the CG. I'm going to start the program fresh, new. Sometimes you might come in and it might already be up and running. It might even have somebody else's graphics in there. So I find it's best just to kind of close out the program and start it fresh. Open up Gen CG links right here. All right, and then it's got a whole new fresh setup for me to work with. And let's just kind of get our footing, what goes where. So first we have kind of our main screen. This is your main kind of edit screen here. This is where you're going to build your graphics for your show. So any lower thirds, any titles, you're going to build and edit and design them in this main window here. To the left of it, we've got what's called the page list. All right, and this is where kind of every single graphic that you make, create, or load into the program is going to pop up on a list here. All right, so then you'll be able to kind of pick each one to either get it ready to cut to that graphic or to make changes to edit the graphics if you like. And then next to that, there's two tiny little squares. And these squares are the transitions. So these are where you're going to pick a transition in and out of a graphic, or it can just be a straight cut. But to the other side, we've got this, what it's called the style catalog. And here there's a lot of kind of pre-made things that you can choose from. Some I find to be helpful, some I find less so. The most used one and the most popular one is probably the Page tab. So in this Page tab, this is a bunch of pre-made lower thirds that you might want to use. Other things that might be helpful are the backgrounds, all right? There's a couple of different background images you can choose from. Some of them are pretty funky. And so this is helpful if you're making title pages and things of that nature. If you want to have a nice background image to kind of build your graphic with, you got plenty of options in the background. There's this shape section here. So I can access these shapes by using, by just clicking and dragging the shape here. And I can also create shapes by using the shape tool over here, which we'll talk about in a second. So there's a couple other tabs here, things like colors, things like animations, characters. These are things that you can explore in your own time, but I don't find to be super important for you to get off the bat. Over here, where it has the attributes control, this is where you're going to have quite a bit of control, quite a bit of editability on things like text and colors. As old as this program is, it actually is pretty customizable, and I'm always kind of impressed by what it's able to do. So over here with things like attributes and color, you'll be able to do things like change the colors of your text, change the fonts, change the sizes. You can get kind of in the weeds here. It can be fun, it can also be overwhelming. A couple other things that happen here, clock and timer and run. These are things for if you want the graphics to do things automated. I don't necessarily suggest doing that when you're first getting started. And then the final thing to talk about over here is the effects tab. And over here on the effects tab, this is where I can choose if a graphic transitions in and out in a specific way, as well as the timing of that transition. Now this is something you may use depending on whether or not you want the CG operator to have complete control over the graphics, or if you want to give that control over to the technical director. And that's something we talk about a little bit in the switcher video as well. Probably the most important feature that is really important for you to get down as soon as possible is the player window. So here in the player window, this is where you're going to get graphics ready and then send graphics over to the switcher. So it's really important that you become familiar and organize your list of all your graphics and then are able to quickly queue those graphics up and send them over to the switcher. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. We have over here the text tool, pretty self-explanatory. Wherever I click when I'm using the text tool, that's going to create a new text box that I can start typing in whatever I like. And then if I need to move the text I just created, then I need to use the select tool. So that's the one right next to it. So now I can move these pieces of text around freely. And then the other tool that's over here next to the text tool is the shape tool. So I can use the shape tool to create different shapes. If I want to kind of highlight a piece of information or create kind of different design elements, I can use the shape tool. Let's say I want to move this box that I just made, put it behind my text. So then I can use these tools over here to make certain things come to the front, other things move back, and shift around the order of the layers of some of my graphics. So let's see, depending on which one I click, there we go. So now I put that box I just made behind my text. Now finally, we've got kind of your basic new open file save features over here. And this is where you'll be able to load in pre-made graphics, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So that's just kind of a brief overview of what's available to you in this program. Tons more to talk about, but this is kind of the main features that you need to know. All right, so let's start talking a little bit more deeper about using the text tool and customizing your text. So I'm going to go ahead and type in something right here. All right, and I definitely want to change the look at this. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here to the Attributes tab, and I can do things like choose different fonts. There's a pretty large number of fonts you can choose from. You know, I would encourage you to have fun with it, but also keep in mind that readability is key. So as cute or pretty as a font might look, if the viewer can't read it, then it doesn't work. So I'm going to go ahead and pick something that I like but is also readable. This, I'm going to make it quite a bit bigger. Now, while you can do that by just taking the corners of this boundary box here, what that can do is it can kind of stretch your text out in a way that doesn't look good. So I always suggest instead holding down the Shift key, and then now when I drag out that box, it's going to scale everything up in a way that's a little bit more consistent with how the text is supposed to look. All right, so now that it's a size that I like better, I can do things like make it bold, italic. I can change the spacing between the letters to make it go further apart or closer together. All these texts have the face color, the main color. It's also got edges, and they also have shadows. And those are all things that you can customize however you like. And then when I come over to color, this is where I can start customizing, again, the face, the edges, and the shadow. So I just need to select face if I want to change the color of the face of the text. I go to edge if I want to change the edge of my text. And then I come to shadow if I want to add a different color shadow to my text. And I can go even deeper than that. If I want the face to be two different colors, then I come over to this palette part. I can select top, and then I can make the top one color and the bottom another color. And I can do the same with the edges as well. I can make the bottom one color and the top a different one. So it can really get pretty in depth if you really want to spend a lot of time making your graphics and customizing them. For starters, I can make the edges of this text, I can make them thicker or thinner. I can also have it be a hard edge or a soft edge. So I might have it just be a bit of a harder edge, and I'm going to have it be a little bit on the thinner side. Then I can do things like making the shadow darker, and I can have it come up off of the background as far or as close as I like. I can also change the direction of the shadow. And keep in mind when you are creating text for your graphics that they should always be staying within the title safe zone. Other elements like design elements or the background colors or any other shapes that you create, those can live outside the title safe zone just fine. Just make sure that the text itself is staying within that boundary box. Okay, so you can create things using a template in this program, such as lower thirds. So lower thirds are anything that sits on the lower third of your screen. And usually that's stuff like people's names and any affiliations they may have. So you're going to need lower thirds for any guest and the host that's on your show. So let's go ahead and make a lower third using a template. So I'm going to come back over here to my style catalog, and I'm going to select page. And then I have all these choices for different style lower thirds that I can pick from. So I'll go ahead and just pick one like this. So if I find one that I like, I just click and drag it onto the main screen, and here it is, it pops on, and then I can just go ahead and type, the host of your show right into the field here. And then you got the subheadline, same deal. You can go ahead and delete what's there, and then type in what you want them to know about that person. Okay, so not only can you make graphics on this machine, you can also load and play graphics that you've already made elsewhere, which I would definitely suggest that you do. So you can make graphics in whatever program you like, as long as you save it to a flash drive like this one, and as long as it's saved as a format that this program can read. So that's just simple image formats such like a PNG or a JPEG, anything like that. Video does not work here, images only. So I already have some graphics loaded up on this flash drive, so let's plug it in and see what I got. So I'm going to come up over here to Insert, and then I can do things as an image here. And then automatically it looks like it's reading my flash drive, and I have in my little folder graphics for the show. So I'll enter this one into the program. And you'll see here my graphic is too big for the screen, so I'm going to have to resize the size of the graphic. It's a little too big for this program. So I'm going to do that by, again, holding down the Shift key, and then I'm going to take the corner of this image and resize it that way. And then I might have to kind of bring it, drag it back over, and I can futz around until it gets to be a size that I'm happy with. Okay, so here we have a lower third graphic that I made in another program. I made sure to save it with an alpha channel, so that means it has no background, just the one part of the image that I want to see. So now when I send that graphic out, you'll be able to see it as a lower third while the video is still playing beneath it. Okay, so once you have designed all your graphics or brought them into the program and you're ready to start the show, the CG operator's job is going to be to queue up and play graphics as they are directed by the director. So that means that they're going to be using this player window over here. So once I'm asked by the director to queue up a graphic, I'll hit the play button, And right now, it comes up on the little left window. Now that doesn't mean I'm setting it to the switcher just yet. If the director's asking me to ready a graphic, I need to have it in the window on the right. So I need to hit play 2 times. So now I'm actually sending that graphic over to the switcher. So then if the technical director hits that DSK1 button, this is what they're going to see. If I hit it again, it's going to take that graphic away. And you see I'd have to hit the play button once more in order to get the next graphic actually queued up. So just keep that in mind. You have to hit it twice to get it here and then send it to the switcher. So when you are sending a graphic over to the switcher, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be up on the screen immediately. The person manning the switcher needs to have that DSK1 button hit on the board in order for this graphic to actually display. So that means you need to be in tune with your technical director, making sure that you're sending them what they need and they're bringing it up when they're ready. Now you can operate a different way where the CG operator is actually the one choosing transitions and the timing of when a graphic comes in. That's just something you need to discuss with your team to see whose job is what. Now there might be times where you need to go back and forth between graphics. You know, maybe you need to revisit one that you've already pulled up. Then that means you need to use this slider tool, and you can easily slide between all the graphics you have in your show. Now there may be times either during the show or before the show even that you maybe have all your graphics set up and ready to go and you've been playing through them. But if you make an edit to one of these graphics, then you need to stop it and clear it for that edit to actually come through. So what I'm saying is if you change something about any one of these graphics, if I don't start the player window from scratch again, then it's going to play the old graphic. So just make sure you're playing with the graphics that you actually have intended. So when you have all your graphics loaded and ready to go and they look good, once the show gets started, it's going to also be your job to bring those other graphics in. And it can also be your job, depending on how you want the show to be run, to choose transitions for each of these graphics. So I'm going to show you how to select transitions here, but that's also something, again, that can be done by the person operating the switcher. So I have my 2 lower thirds here, and I can select different ways for something to pop in and pop out, transition in and transition out. So right now, if I click on the first one and I click on this, this is how something will transition in. So I'll click on that. And then down here by the effects tool, I've got all these different effects that I can use to transition in. So let me go ahead and pick something that looks good. And then now I can use another transition to transition out. So I can click on that one, and it can go out whatever way I want it to go out. And I can do that for each one of these graphics. Now, if you want something to just pop on and pop off, then that's when you want the exclamation point. All right? You need it now. So just hit the exclamation point. When it is going to be the technical director's job to choose the transitions, then you want to make sure all of these are set to that exclamation point. You don't want to have a transition on here if it's already the technical director's job to do so. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you know who's doing what in the studio setup that you have ready to go. Okay, so now we're going to talk about making a credit roll. And that works a little differently than making any other graphic. So first I'm going to go ahead and create a new page here by just clicking on a blank one on the page list. And then I'm going to come over here to where it says still. So up till now, everything we've made has just been a still graphic. And now we're going to make a roll. So now what that means is if I use the text tool and I type in here, I can start typing in my graphics, my credit roll. All right, so once you have all your credits typed out, then you're going to want to spend some time to make sure that everything is still centered in the frame, still in that title safe zone. So I'm going to go ahead, move over to the select tool, move things around. These things look a little big to me, so I'm going to hold down that shift key, scale it down a bit, and rearrange it. All right, so even though you can't see all the text, it is a roll, so I'm still going to roll through each of these. Okay, and so now if you look over here at the thumbnail for the credit roll, you see that it looks a little different than all these other ones, in that it's got this up arrow and then this ellipses. So that means it's a credit roll that's going to roll up and fade out. So when you are getting ready to play a credit roll, do keep in mind that as soon as you send it from the preview to the program, it's going to automatically start playing. So only send it out when you know that that graphic will be playing on the program monitor. So that means the person who is manning the switcher already has that door open for that graphic to play. So if I go ahead and hit the play here, I scroll over to have my credit roll in the preview. So again, as soon as I send it over to my program, it should start playing over on the program on the switcher. So that's the CG, the character generator. It's really important that you make yourself comfortable with the player window. That tends to be where beginners get tripped up the most. So make sure you get comfortable with readying a graphic, queuing it up, and bringing it in when the director asks you to. Also keep in mind that readability is key. Again, just because something looks cute, if you can't read it, it doesn't do you much good. And always, always encouraging to make the graphics ahead of time so then you're not sitting here typing away, 10 minutes before the show starts. So if you can, make your graphics ahead of time. And also, if you make your graphics ahead of time, you can bring them in every time you do that show. So if you have a show that you do every month, then you should have the same graphics every month. So having those things saved and ready to go right when you come in is going to make your job easier, and it's also going to make your show look better.